Welcome back to Green Eggs and Dan. It is now 1 minute after the hour of 5 o'clock. Got some rare earth. Get ready in the background. And also have in the studio Jennifer and Sašo. Sašo all the way from Slovenia. We're going to be talking about the Venus Project. And welcome, Jennifer and Sašo. How you all doing today?
Great. Thanks for having us here.
All right. Now, you guys are traveling. You're from Denver. What's your story? What's going on with you two?
With us particularly, or
well, just give us an idea of who you are and what you're up to. What brings you to Salida? And then we'll just jump into the Venus Project from there.
All right. Well, what brings us to Salida today is the Venus Project, I guess. And the two of us have met through the project. And like you mentioned, I've kind of come a long way since then. But we're primarily volunteers for the project. We try to get engaged in as many different ways as possible, and we try to get on shows like this and try to discuss some of the ideas that we present that we're going to talk about in this interview.
All right. And so the Venus Project, what is the Venus Project?
Yeah, so the big question, what is the Venus Project? It is an organization that proposes an alternative social plan called the resource-based economy. And what that social plan is about is to try and do away with some of the problems that we see today, like hunger, poverty, war, things like that. And we're trying to use the scientific method and we're trying to use the technologies that we already have today to provide those things for all the people on the planet and make all the resources a common heritage to all the world's people.
Okay, so what then I guess are what would be the steps you're taking? What's going on out there? What is happening to make it so?
Well, there's a lot happening to make it so. I want to start off with saying that the project is international. It is not only here in the United States. That's how I got involved too in my home country of Slovenia. It has different teams and people operating in about 40 to 50 different countries in the world. And we're trying to do things both globally and locally.
Okay. And what are some of the projects you've got going on then?
Everybody just looked at me. Excuse me. Well, there's a number of different things. The co-founders of the project have been working on this for years. Our co-founder Jacques actually just turned 100 this year, so there was a big centennial celebration for him for recognition of his life's work towards making the world a better place. So that happened recently. Jacques and Roxanne have built a 21.5 acre research facility down in Florida where they have tested out a lot of their ideas, and established them down at the research center. So we have that there where people can come and they come and they tour every Saturday. They fly from all over the world every Saturday to tour around the grounds. Jacques still lectures even though he's 100, and Roxanne gives a tour around the different buildings. They're disaster resistant buildings, built to withstand earthquakes, tornadoes, fires, different things like that. And there's models and different things for further plans for the city. Actually, and our founder Jacques was just awarded by the United Nations a couple weeks ago, I believe July 17th, if I'm correct. But he was just awarded by the United Nations for his lifetime achievement in city and community development, for his sustainable designs that work in conjunction with the environment instead of against the environment. So we have that, and at that United Nations award, actually, our other co-founder, Roxanne, announced that we have just formed the nonprofit organization called Resource-Based Economy, which will be directed towards the development of the first resource-based economy city that we're proposing. So we have that in development. We're working on a major motion film. We also just released a 4-part documentary series at the beginning of this year in January in regards to the 4 parts discuss the different issues that the world is facing, like Sašo had mentioned, with homelessness, hunger, homelessness when we have plenty of houses, hunger when we have plenty of food, different things like that, and how to address those issues. So, yeah.
Maybe I would touch a little bit just on the volunteer part of projects that we have running, and those are different teams from around the world that come together and try to help with different projects such as social media and translations, which is a very important project, and transcriptions of different lectures. Some of the people that do archiving, that do audio work, we have a lot of older materials in our archive that still need to be digitized and translated and turned into educational material. And so that's been a big part of what we're trying to do, and just education in general, trying to improve online education to try and connect it with as many people as possible. For now, it's all in English, but we would like to develop that for different international languages, of course, as well. And with people getting involved, I think we can do that.
For quite a while, it was predominantly Jacques and Roxanne that were traveling around the world and doing lectures and seminars and things like that, trying to raise awareness at different college universities and events. Even when Jacques was 96, he did a 30-country world tour in 3 months, where he and Roxanne lectured at all of these different countries, and that was just in those 3 months when he was 96. They've been doing that all over, basically their whole lives. So now that he is 100 and a little less mobile, we're really trying to focus on taking all of this education and information that they've done over all these years and like Sašo said, translate it and just get it out to people. I think that it's a very interesting time period because many people are wanting change. They are quite fed up with the way things are being handled and being done. And I think they have an idea of pieces of how things could improve. But when people tend to hear about this proposal by the Venus Project, they're very interested because the more they learn about it, they're able to see that it covers the issues that they are of interest to them on a permanent basis. So instead of having a system in place where we constantly have to fight for different rights, and wages or, equal rights or things, and we're constantly, even if they get it, inflation rises or things like that, and then you have to fight for it again. And it's just a constant battle within this system to ensure that the planet and its inhabitants are taken care of. So with the proposal that the Venus Project has, it will put a system in place that won't allow for these type of conditions to affect the planet and its inhabitants in such a negative way. So.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess, a question I've got is how is this change? How do you see it evolving? How do you see it happening? I mean, what are the steps? Because right now, we're in this election insanity.
Yes.
Yes,
we are.
Who, I don't know. I don't even want to go there. How can we get out of this insanity and get into something relatively sane anyway?
Yeah. The best way is education, honestly. What you're doing right now, having us on the radio show and these people that have us on shows and podcasts and, in magazine articles and documentaries and different things like that, and push this information around, because you can't make steps forward as well as you can with more people knowing. The more that know, the more that will help you to make those steps forward. And that's what's happening. So, as I mentioned, Jacques and Roxanne were doing this for so long on their own. And the more that they started to gain awareness, they started to get people to help. So now that they've been starting to get people to help in all these different departments, and it is, as Sašo said, almost completely volunteer basis, so it's amazing to see how many people have reached out in the past, are continuing to reach out, and are starting to reach out, more and more, especially as we start to get more mainstream attention, having us on these shows and these things. That's how you do it. And then once people are able to learn about what we propose, which our next step is, that we are looking to do a major motion film so that it can go actually be in the movie theaters and reaching people on a bigger scale, and also to work on the development of the first city so that people would be able to actually see and visit and be inside what we propose. And then that'll be a very good basis to go forward.
Yeah, now where's this town or city that you're proposing to develop?
Well, that's, so far we don't have a location. It is something that we have been trying now for a while to do. Obviously, a project of such magnitude has a lot of different problems to it, and it's not only the location, it's also resources, it's also local government perhaps that would have to facilitate some sort of collaboration or things like that. So that's not really an easy question or an easy step to take, but it's definitely one of the things that we want to do, and the new nonprofit organization has been created just for that purpose, so that we would have that tool to try and get funding, to try and get people interested in this, what we see a very immediate danger and very immediate reaction that we should have to try and improve things. So that would be the practical step. The city would serve as a demonstration tool to make it very clear that there is a different way that we can organize ourselves, that people can come visit and see that you don't need money to run a city or to run your resources, and that you don't need to use, I guess, these tactics of competition and this monetary incentive.
Well, now how do you change from that? Because now, as you were saying this in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, now that what I see as a possible first step is we have all these communities that are devastated by floods, for instance, right now, and so to me, a logical perhaps first step would be to go in and rebuild those communities in this style. But now, how do you incorporate the monetary, how does the monetary, because I mean, I look at this established system is so ingrained.
It is.
And so how do you propose shifting from it to what you guys see?
And
how?
This is why the education part is so important. Because the concept is so drastically different than what's been tried for all of these years. All that's been tried for all of these years is to try to patch the current system. Okay, we need to raise the minimum wage, from $3 an hour or whatever it used to be, to $4, to $5, to $6, to $7, to now it's to $15 and things like that, which is okay. And for a while, it may give some people a temporary ease of their burdens. But then as inflation rises and things change, technological unemployment puts more people out of work, they're going to have to fight again to raise that kind of thing. So what we're hoping to show people, but by educating them, is it's not actually the money that you need, it's access to the things that you require. So now if you were able to get the things that you get from a paycheck per se, but didn't have that factor in the middle that got in the way of it, then that would, if you can explain that to people, it will show. Once they realize that it's not actually the pieces of paper that they want, it's the access to the things, then we can start to explain to them, the concept a lot
But
more.
how does that shift when right now the whole system is it's ingrained.
And that's why
it's been ingrained for
we
centuries.
haven't built the city yet because of funding. So now that we're gaining more awareness and people are starting to find out about it and more interested, we're hoping, because this is the first city and we are still in a monetary-based economy, we have to raise money to build the first city to show people what we can do. And that's the first step. Then people can start to become more and more interested in it, put it in their own countries, et cetera, et cetera.
We kind of went through that, 40, 50 years ago with the communal. There was a number of communes, or communal living back in those days that were somewhat based on that. It was along those lines. But again, they had to incorporate into a bigger world, a bigger society. So, as time went on, they became, isolated in a sense, and people drifted back into the real big world. So
yeah, I think that's still very prevalent today too. I think there's a lot of communities such as eco villages and different different places like that organize themselves in a very local manner, and I think we don't really have anything against those. I think that it makes sense for people to try and organize their lives that way because it fills more needs than just going back into the rat race, at least for some time. I think the major difference from those types of communities is the scale, going to the next step. So not stopping there, not stopping with a community of 50 or 100 people and keeping it relatively agrarian or low tech. We would like to make that next step and create processes that would automate things, that would make us have more time to spend for resolving some of the problems that we have, as opposed to just working for us to get along. So that's really the major difference. And I just wanted to quickly mention that the transition from where we are right now to where we want to be, I think that's the most complex question that you started on. But I just wanted to say that it will be slow. It can't happen overnight. We can't just decide and say, okay, tomorrow everything's going to be different. That's the idea of the city. The city is kind of a demonstration tool, so that the countries, different people can see what the benefits are, and then they can come back home and say, hey, it works over there. Why don't we build the same thing here, make our lives easier?
Well, but see, along those lines, that's one reason why I'm on the radio here as well, is because I see this community as being capable of being relatively self-sufficient. I mean, we've got a lot of resources, a lot of things right here to make us relatively self-sufficient. But I mean, we can cut down on the amount of trucks and goods coming into this place. But on the other hand, I don't see us being able to totally isolate ourselves from all of everything, and especially now that it's grown to be such a web of not just communications, but just there's so much. If you want to, you got to go to Denver for certain things. I mean, there's just you can't find everything here, so you got to be able to get out in that bigger world too.
The world has become a global village, really, if you look at it. There's a lot of places that are definitely more self-sufficient, but if you look at a lot of the cities and how we organize ourselves, a lot of times they are not self-sufficient at all, especially some of the cities that you have here in the middle of the desert without any kind of resources that has immense populations. That means that you have to exploit the land somewhere else.
Yeah, how's Las Vegas gonna survive in this kind of a system?
That's just something that you cannot support, at least not in this way. And that's really something that we would like to see change in the future, definitely.
I just wanted to revisit really quickly about your point about the disaster sites like Louisiana or something like that. And we wouldn't be against building a city there. If they were, and this is why we try to talk to everybody. We try to talk to, have these radio shows, local radio shows, and try to do things, maybe, try to reach a celebrity or try to reach, a politician or something like that. And we're trying, as we get more and more support, to reach all these different people. If, for example, the governor of Louisiana wanted to put into the budget, for their infrastructure to be, allotted to the Venus Project to redesign their infrastructure so that we can desalinize the water, re-irrigate things, and we don't have these floodings, and we can put it to areas where, the water is actually needed and things like that. And they were to help, to do that, then that would be something, that could be discussed. So it's not something that at all that we wouldn't want to discuss or something like that. And ideally, as Jacques and Roxanne proposed it, a resource-based economy is a global economy. It's something that ideally the United Nations or someone like, some organization like that would come together from all the countries and decide to do this together because it's best for the planet and its inhabitants. That would be ideal. But as Sašo said, it's a little bit difficult to get 258 countries to agree on anything at this time. So we may have to start on a, on a different level, like you said. Perhaps we don't know how it'll come. We don't know if a billionaire is just going to decide that he is bored and wants to help build the first technological city that's going to work on these type of problems, and things like that. Or if it's going to come from a bunch of people donating to us, or, a bunch of wealthier people, or a celebrity, or a government. We don't know if a politician will run and get elected and decide that they want to institute a resource-based economy, and then it'll spread. We're not sure. So we try all of the different angles to approach people, to try to network it together as best as we can.
I'm again, I kind of go back to, the going into disasters, and, I heard you say early on, you were talking about architecture or buildings that are resistant to
floods, water. They have floods, tornadoes. The reason you'll get to see a lot of Jacques' designs have domes, roofs instead of arches and things like that. A lot of places are starting to build dome houses now. That's very recent. Jacques has had these designs since the 30s. 40s, because simply it isn't because he likes domes. It isn't because he wants to just do some unique architectural thing to stand out. It's because the dome reflects the base of the tornado up inside of itself, so it doesn't destroy the house. There's reasons behind each of those things, and he doesn't even just design the house when he builds it. He designs the factories that design the houses and how those factories will fit in with the environment and not cause damage and things like that. So everything that he has done and studied, he has really integrated into something that covers all of the issues that we're facing.
As far as these catastrophes, I also wanted to mention that this is a systemic problem within this system. I mean, the floods and droughts have been happening since the beginning of humanity, and this is not something that should be surprising anymore. The problem is that we just are not doing anything to prevent or mitigate this beforehand. We are always just struggling and trying to get things back to how they were before, after the fact, after it happens. Why not put in waterways that can collect all this water when it comes, and then when there's a drought, you can use this water and irrigate the land, and people don't have to go without. And instead of that, we have a lot of these patchworks that happen every time after a hurricane, or after this or after that, and you can see that that buildings get swept away by a hurricane, and then the same ones get built as though the hurricane's never going to come back, and
the same materials too, the wood and the same shape, and it's funny. But Louisiana, I actually used to live in Louisiana, and I went down with 1,500. We organized 1,500 volunteers to go down for the first time the superstorms hit down there with Katrina and Rita. And we went down from our colleges, and we went down with FEMA, and, we went back and forth, and all we did was gut houses, go through just all the flood houses and gut them for people and do different work and all this stuff like that. And that was quite a while ago. And it now just happened again. Everything that you do has the potential to get wiped out if you don't change the irrigation systems and the septic systems and make the cities in a different way. Repairing the ones that we have now it's not efficient to try to keep repairing what's going on in Louisiana. Maybe build the levee up, or do this or whatever. It's, if the levels of the ocean are rising, you're going to have to keep rising the levees up, when you could make it a plan that irrigates, like you're talking about Nevada deserts, and drought, or laden areas and things like that, and change it in that manner instead of just, like Sašo said. And the money that's constantly put out to go and repair these the same way and have it happen again and again and again and again is so much more money than it would cost to completely redo this in a manner that could link up with other cities and actually make this something that takes care of what's going on in the planet. Yes, the ocean levels are rising. We can use that. We can take them down and we can desalinize them and put them where we need it. There's different, all these things that we can do. So... And before this time period, it was really a matter of we didn't have the technology or the resources or the ability to make the resources that we didn't have before this point. Now we really have a lot of knowledge of technology and things that are going on with the planet, with climates and things like that, and we have the resources, like I said, or the ability with our technology to make what we need. So now, before then, in Maine, it couldn't have happened. We didn't even get internet till 25 years ago, so it wasn't this global technological thing. We understand why it didn't happen previously, but now, is a very good time, and people are becoming very interested in a lot of different fields. There's politicians talking about it where no one's ever talked about, actually getting rid of money before, and different things all over. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm not hearing that in this country yet. I mean, even Bernie.
The United States is a little bit of the slower sometimes.
Even
with
Bernie,
money.
He's been fumbling the ball here big time lately as far as that goes too. So I mean,
they're talking about getting money out of politics, not getting money out of the entire system. But
well, yeah, and I've been calling for the evolution of all this stuff. We need to evolve it. But are you guys familiar with? I'm sure the Thrive Project and all of that, and that's along these lines also. I mean, I think that these really progressive, mentalities and visions have got to start combining their energies. Rather than each one stuck in their own pod, basically, and trying.
I think there's also already a lot of project that, let's say, at least try to go along similar lines. The problem is that it's usually very hard to combine forces. A lot of these different groups are made or built from people that already have a certain set of values and their own way of doing things. So a lot of times it's hard for a different organization to come in and just join with somebody else, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we see maybe more of these different organizations that kind of talk about things similarly, but have some changes or some differences and are not working together right away. But also there are quite a few of them that have, let's say, more talk than substance. So it's very hard to link up or get together if some things are not very clear.
I found that one thing that seems to be good is sometimes with these different organizations too, they're using that as their way that they will generate money in this in this system. So instead of having them completely link up or something like that or whatever, it's nice if activists or organizations can spend fraction of their time, 5% or 10% of their energies on the Venus project, because in the end result will be that it will take care of their issue that they're trying to achieve. So it's not like it's expected everybody to just drop everything that they're working on right now and like, oh, that doesn't go far enough, so completely lose it, or this and that. But if you're helping this too, it will cover your issues down the road on a permanent basis. And back to your, the sharing communities that you were talking about, the sharing economies or gift economies and things that people are doing are nice, and a better system, in my opinion, than what we have now. But it still runs into a part where it can become unequal because of, you said, this overshadowing monetary system. So even if you're with your little community and you're kind of working it out, that might be really, really nice, but it doesn't cover everybody else that's going through it all over right now too. And and you'll still have to rely on money, and if you have nothing to exchange because of some reason, you can also run into a problem in those type of communities that are based on a barter system, instead of integrating it into the system that no matter what, people have homes and have food and have clean water and education and things like that. So but they're wonderful. It's great for that particular
but
area.
I've got to people have just got to get over it. And I think in the Venus thing, the classic is the founder he's a fossil, he's on his last steps, so you're gonna need new leadership. And it's time for somebody to pick up the ball. Well, we have our
co-founder. She's wonderful. She's wonderful, and we have a lot of people over the world, as Sašo mentioned, that are doing education in the 50 countries and things like that.
Good.
So yeah,
good, because we're going to have to start working together, and that means really the way I try and present it, in my life and on this show also, is that we have to be harsh to a certain extent because we got to shatter the delusion.
Yes.
But then we have to offer viable solutions as well.
Yes.
And viable solutions mean that we really do have to start working together. We do have to start putting our minds together and coming up with really, viable solutions to these things. And it really is going to require that loss of kind of exclusivity and ego and that kind of thing, and really get down, because we're not going to be able to take all the million, and I mean millions of tiny steps to get there, because this is not going to happen. If everything falls apart, it's not going to just all of a sudden rebuild like this, whatever the vision is. There's an economic system in place that is the what we got to dance with.
If everything were to fall apart before enough people were educated about a different direction, then it can go much worse than it is now. It can turn into a form where there's more police enacted, or a martial law type of thing, just because there's panic all over because people don't have enough food or enough money, or things like this. And so that's why a lot of people just say that they hope this system collapses, and this and that, so this can just take its place. And like you just said, it won't take its place unless enough people know about it to be able to demand it. So, which is another reason that, in this system, these things that are patches of things are being done, in the meantime. And
also, I just wanted to mention that regarding concern that there's, somebody that is a founder and that has a say, or that we can't deviate from that. That's exactly kind of the opposite of what we actually propose. Generally, these are proposals with the best practices that we see up to now in the world. Some of them are in pockets already implemented. Technologies are overwhelmingly already there. They're just not used with social concern in mind. So that's basically what we need to do. And we want to go away from any kind of elitism, either technical elitism or otherwise. So it doesn't matter what one person's opinion says. It's what tests out to be the best systems, and that's what we want to use. So if anybody has a proposal that would improve whatever it is that we're talking about, then that would be utilized if it's demonstrated that it works best. So, and I think that's a wonderful system, and that's how science works. And I think that that without the restrictions of the monetary system, I think that it will be a lot more relevant than what we have today.
Well, yeah, and along those lines, now, I mean, how do you see a world functioning without money?
Beautifully.
Well, I think that's actually a very tricky question. I think it's very hard for people to imagine a world without money, for the most part, because we've been so conditioned and so ingrained, like you said, like I mentioned before, into everything costing money, and money, all these expressions like money makes the world go round and things like that. People just have a very hard time imagining how it would be without money. But I generally try to, give the example of people's hobbies and whatever they volunteer for. And that shows clearly that there is a great number of people that have no problems working on things without any kind of monetary incentive. And it would take us to create a system or implement a system that would further promote that type of work, and not just jobs, but work and different research and different help in these different fields. And I think that's, to a degree, that's already happening. But we have to make that happen in a system design type of way. It won't just haphazardly come off on its own.
Well, what's the template for that system design change then? How is it going to happen? Because
money.
How do you fly from here to Paris, say?
Yeah.
And without having some kind of
I know.
This system is intact because there is that it is intact because there is a system in place that allows it to happen. It is developed over a long time.
Money is a tool, and we developed it because it was convenient. So, and to a degree, it still is. This is
where I go with this. Is that to me, the shift has got to be from, instead of money being our master, to money is a tool.
Yeah.
But to a great extent, that is what it is. It is a tool right now.
It is.
We use it as a tool to accomplish what we want to do.
Yeah. Well, it was more so a tool at the time of its, let's say, inception.
But it's always been a tool. Really,
it's always been a tool, but it has become a tool that's obsolete. And it was made obsolete by different march of events that our society took, and namely that's automation and having the ability to
But automation
produce.
Still runs off of money. Money still is the force behind automation.
And that's actually a really good point, because what's happening now with this tool that we invented ourselves to help try to make things easier, instead of trading a sheep for, however many things of corn and this, we started developing this form of currency. And now this tool that we made ourselves and put here is becoming more of a slavery to us at this point, because now we're getting to a point where we are coming up with ideas to fix things and provide solutions, and it's not, do we have the knowledge to do it, or do we have the resources? It's always, do we have the money to do it? So this paper that we're supposed to be using as a tool is actually restricting us from being able to develop the things that would improve the planet and our well-being at this point. So now it's starting to get to a point where it's, as Sašo said, it's not a relevant tool anymore. It's turning into a destructive tool for us. So now we have to look at what tools we can use to better facilitate taking care of ourselves and taking care of the planet. And it's just not relevant anymore. Every time we go to do something.
I beg to disagree. It's
making an impact.
It's extremely relevant.
It's making an impact on what's going on.
It is the force.
Yeah.
It is the force, basically, to a great extent.
It is relevant because we've made it relevant, because that's what we based our economy on currently. But if we go back to the example of catastrophes that we see right now, that's pretty much where it's very obvious that money plays a role into basically setting up the people that are in those areas for repeated catastrophes, because they cannot afford to create sustainable communities that would actually have the architecture to withstand whatever it is that they're subject to, or the infrastructure that they need to avoid these problems. And they don't do that because there's no money return in that, and there's only a select number of funds, relief funds, or whatever it is that goes towards catastrophes, and that's just to kind of put out the fire a little bit. But what you would really need is the resources to build there and to make a community that will not be subject to this type of catastrophes anymore. And you do that once and have a long-term plan in mind, and then you solve that problem, not just for the day, but you solve it until further notice. And that's something that's not happening within the monetary system. And also because the political system, which is, of course, kind of the outgrowth of all that, operates on this cycles of 4 years. And in 4 years, there's not much that you can do. 4 years is a very limited amount of time. So a politician is not incentivized to take on a project that will take a decade, because they will be spending a lot of money and doing things, and they have no idea if they're going to be reelected or not, or what will happen. So they want to do things that they can show something for. I did this in the year, or I did this in 2 years. And that's usually just patchwork a lot of times.
And I think that, also politicians, they just don't have the knowledge to be able to put together a systemic plan to take care of it. They're career politicians. They're not scientists. They're not, in the field of environmentals and in the field of biology and in the field of these different things that affect the planets and its inhabitants. They're politicians. They are paid to present a face of leadership, and I think that a lot of politicians want to do the right thing. They literally just don't know, too. And then I think, as Sašo
we're creatures of the system, and that's I guess where I come from on this. My perception is that we need to change the perception, and again, we need to change this money system, and not. I can't see us eliminating it. I really can't, because I see we need to use it. But we need to change the perception of it from being literally our master, all right, and literally, and it really, from my experience and my education of this system, and believe me, I know very little and I've got a lot to learn, but what I do know is that it seems to me that what we need to do is shift it from this usury kind of a system where it's indebtedness, the debt part of it. For example, all of these countries in the world are in debt. And who are we in debt to? This is,
what is that?
I think that we have to shatter this delusion of money and go to the top, and I think that's we're picking away at it right now in so many ways. Well, but the bottom line is we have to change it to use it. And again, use it
to get rid of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, change it to something that functions. For example, what we're talking about is, rebuilding towns, but building them the right way. Yeah. And rebuilding our infrastructure. Yes. And there's money. There's plenty of money to put in say what I see, say for the I-70 corridor, going up. I used to live in Eagle County, and I know the dilemma of that corridor, shall we say. And we put in a two-tiered monorail, that goes right on the interstate system, basically, and things like that. But these are high kind of cost things. They're going to cost money. They're not going to be built without money, because it just doesn't work that way. No. Yeah. So, but we take away the factor that there's this lack of money. There's plenty of money to build it. There's plenty of money. There's plenty of money for everybody to have a good life. That's where I see it shifting anyway. Is so it's not a deal of.
I don't know if there's actually enough. There's been a lot of studies if there's actually enough physical currency in existence to be able to actually provide everyone a nice life. And according to
we print some more.
all of the studies that according to all the studies I read, but they could be wrong or skewed, but in circulation there isn't enough to provide everybody the life that they need. But as you said, it will be difficult with 258 separate countries, all with their own government and their own rules and their own different way of things, to have everybody come to this at once. So in the meantime, as you said, the money that is being used needs to be appropriated towards things that are more positive solutions than what we're using them for now. But then after these solutions are put in place and the tracking of people's needs is more accounted for. See, money is almost a tool of tracking what people need, and it's getting more and more digitized with credit cards and things like that, and being able to track what people need and are buying. And so this is a form of exchange. So even as we develop that, and as we develop that and more positive things, what we need is to track what people need and to be able to have the resources for everybody distributed to them, properly. And these distribution channels and things like that and technologies that are getting set up to track that kind of thing will be helpful in the future to transition, like you said, to a more useful tool. But for now,
possibly,
that's the hope.
They could be.
That's the hope. They can go either way in this system.
When you talk the money being the master, that's why it really is a fine line that we're dancing on here.
A profit-driven system is not a sustainable system for the planet or anybody that lives on it.
Well, that's for sure. But also, I think as far as when we're talking about money, I think that we can't. One of the misconceptions kind of is that we want to boycott money overnight, which is not the case, and that would not be a good idea, not a good solution.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to create an environment where money is less and less relevant, so that it is less and less a part of the person's life or their need, to claw their way into survival. So one of the examples that I always use is technological advances, where at the time when the tape recorder or cassette recorder came out, and then later on when the discs, the compact discs came out, nobody said, nobody should use the cassette recorder anymore. You know what I mean? That's not, we don't want to make it illegal or anything like that. But what you do is you progress, and then some of the old values and the old systems that are no longer the most relevant, that don't provide your resources and things like that, will just become obsolete. And that's not really by any kind of decree, or it's not by any kind of decision. It is just by evolution.
It's evolution.
Yeah.
There you go.
And there's like you were saying, levels because of needs that you'll have to take care of for people. It's hard for people that do not even know if they are going to be able to feed their child or themselves that day, that are working 2-3 jobs, this or not working because of whatever circumstance of this or that, to get past that pressing need of food and clean water and a safe housing and things like that, to even be able to open up a little bit more towards these larger scale projects for the planet, because you're so filled with anxiety and fear of just being able to have your basic survival needs. So there's a lot of things that you'd want to address those first, and in making sure that people's immediate basic needs are met, and then to develop from there. So like Sašo was saying, it's a process. It wouldn't we got to take all these little steps, and that's why I just recommend that we don't hesitate because of this project or that project. I think they all need to start. We need to literally put our minds together. And I was reading some New York Times last night, and there was a great quote in here, and I don't remember exactly where it was or how it went, but it was along the lines of, we need to put our minds together, and that's what I've been calling for, is we got to outthink this. We got to outthink these problems. We got to literally put great minds together
I mean, this country was founded with, some great minds coming together, and it was a process that they worked out. Was it perfect? Not even, but they gave us the template. They gave us the blueprint to build off of, and now it's time for those great minds to continue the work, and this is all part of it, I see, is, these kind of projects like the Venus Project. And again, the Thrive, that mentality again. And
I would say that we should, I mean, by we, I mean everybody, we should try and examine as many of these proposals as we can, and try to see which ones are the ones that are the most relevant, that have the best tools, that have the best proposals or whatever it is, and see if we can add to them, and that's pretty much what the volunteers are trying to do, and that's something that I want to do. I mean, I was this was my conduit to all this information, the Venus Project, when I got involved. Before that, I didn't really know even what was exactly wrong with the system. I didn't even know if there's anyone that's proposing something different. And so this was, for me, a catalyst to look into everything and to look into different technologies, what they're saying. Is it possible? Is it not? Do we have something like that already? Things like that. And if people have that kind of attitude, if they genuinely want to explore it and learn about it, I think they will see the relevance in its applications. And once hopefully we get to the next step where they can actually explore it and feel it kind of on their own skin, how it feels to operate in a very different way, I think they will realize that that's something that they want in their life. And that kind of demonstration is really, I think, the ultimate way to get people involved and say, okay.
All right. Well, we're working down to the last few minutes here. So, Jennifer and Sašo, first I want to thank you both for coming in, but also what's next for you two then along these lines, and where can people get more information and get involved, and let us know what you two are up to, and what's the best way to carry on this?
It's a great question. I guess I'll start with some of the ways that people generally can get involved. I would suggest going to our website, which is just www.thevenusproject.com altogether. And try to get some information. There's ways that people can ask questions and submit different proposals there too, and they can see a lot of different materials. We have our YouTube channel, which is full of free online materials that anybody can review and download and burn and distribute to people. And also a lot of other tools that we have. There's online educational platforms which we're trying to improve all the time, so that people can get engaged, which are free online again. So we're trying our best to make as many projects and information available to everybody. And there are different teams that work on different goals, such as graphics, social media, like I mentioned before, and you can get in touch with them through that. And we have a whole team of volunteers that are working around the world, so a lot of times maybe you can find even people that are local in your area, and that's pretty much how we got to be here today with you, because we find somebody who's here next door to you, and she invited us to come over, and we did. So there we are. And there we have a lot of documentaries now, basically 3 documentaries that are again free online that people can access and review, I guess, and see if they agree with things that are proposed there.
We have Future by Design, Paradise or Oblivion, and our new one that was in the beginning of the year is The Choice is Ours. They're all great in their own ways.
And this really is the Venusproject.com?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find them there. You can find them on YouTube. If you Google the Venus Project, you know, even you'll find a lot of our videos and things like that. There's quite a bit of entries all over the planet at this point now, which is exciting.
As far as us personally, we're just trying to do as much as we can. I've generally been focusing on trying to help people in their local areas to start their own education and their own groups and things like that. And Jennifer's been mostly doing things from the global perspective, trying to help some of the social media and just other things as far as the Venus Project is as an organization. So try to get involved.
Everyone needs help, and we can actually help. We try to help.
So you're based out of Denver, more or less, right now, though. I mean, that's where you're at the moment, anyway.
Yes, till about the end of September, and then we'll be heading back to New Jersey, and then back down to Venus, and then we'll probably be back in Colorado about once a month or so. From then on.
But we're online all the time.
All the time.
Okay.
That's today's world,
yeah,
so
and
you can
anyone
always
can
find us online.
Message our networks on Facebook, Twitter, we have Google+, we have Pinterest, we have Instagram, we have all the different networks that people can get on, and, you know, send us a message there. If they can't find a better way to connect somehow, you know, you can even just send us a message there or on the website.
All right. Well, Sašo and Jennifer, thanks again for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and we'll have you back, and one of these next time we'll try and do a little call-in kind of thing. But we got rolling, and I just wanted to get it out there for people.
It's okay.
So that
That's
they can,
good.
Yeah.
They can, you know.
We would love to come back.
Yeah.
All right.
Anytime.
Well, we have got Counterspin coming up here at the top of the hour, and that's about 3 minutes away. So until then, I'm going to crank up, get ready, some Rare Earth.